Am I the a-hole for telling my mom to screw off after stole my trust fund? Then asked for more money? I, 20F, and my mom, 52F, have never gotten along well. She was a work alcoholic, overbearing, narcissistic, and all around a handful. Growing up, our relationship wasn't just strained. It was a constant battle of wills where I was always the one expected to surrender. My house was never a sanctuary. It was a place where I had to walk on eggshells, constantly measuring my words and monitoring my mother's mood. If she had a bad day at work, everyone in the house suffered. If she felt slightly inconvenienced, it was treated like a national tragedy. She was the center of her own universe, and the rest of us were just expected to revolve around her, providing whatever fuel she needed for her ego at any given moment. I found out when I was 18 I had a trust from my grandma she never told me about. The discovery was almost accidental. I was looking through some old legal documents I found while cleaning out a desk, trying to find my birth certificate for a job application, when I stumbled upon a series of bank statements and a formal letter from an attorney's office. I remember my hands shaking as I read the words. My grandmother, who was the only person who truly seemed to see me when I was a child, had set aside a significant amount of money specifically for me. The trust was made to help with school and my necessities. It wasn't meant to be a luxury fund. It was a safety net designed to ensure that I would always have a roof over my head and an education, regardless of what happened to the family. What made this discovery so bitter was the realization of how much I had struggled while that money sat there, hidden from me. She always made me pay for my own stuff, even though she was getting money for all of it. During my high school years, I worked part-time jobs until late at night, trying to scrape together enough money for basic things like school supplies, clothes that actually fit, and the occasional meal out with friends. I was constantly exhausted. My grades were slipping because I was working so many hours, and I felt a deep sense of shame that we were struggling so much. It hurt because I was forced to miss out of opportunities and even therapy because she always said we didn't have enough. I remember specifically asking for help during my junior year. I was spiraling, feeling the weight of the house and her constant emotional volatility. I told her I needed to talk to someone, a professional, because I couldn't handle the anxiety anymore. She looked me in the eye and told me we were on the brink of ruin and that therapy was a luxury for people who didn't have bills to pay. I felt like a burden. I felt like every cent I cost the family was taking food out of my father's mouth. At some point, she just gave up hiding where my money went and would use it to buy fun stuff for herself. As I got older, the facade started to crack. She stopped pretending the household budget was tight. It made more sense how she randomly had money for TJ Maxx shopping sprees, drinks for her friends at the bar, and new purses. I would come home from a 10-hour shift at my retail job, legs aching and mind numb, only to see her sitting on the couch surrounded by shopping bags. She'd have a new leather handbag or a pile of designer candles and home decor. When I'd ask how she afforded it, she'd give some vague answer about a bonus or saving up, but the math never added up. Seeing her buy rounds of drinks for her friends while I was skipping lunch to save for textbooks was a level of betrayal I couldn't even put into words at the time. The moment I turned 18 and gained legal autonomy over that trust, I didn't hesitate. I used that trust to move into a cheap apartment, finished my senior year, started therapy, and been working my butt off since then. The move was chaotic. I didn't tell her until the day I was leaving. I packed my life into a few boxes and left the keys on the counter. The freedom was overwhelming. For the first time in my life, the air I breathed didn't feel heavy with someone else's expectations. I finally got into a therapist's office, and the diagnosis wasn't a surprise, but it was a relief to have a name for what I was feeling. I wanted to keep in contact, but it was hard. I tried the low-contact route for a while. I'd send a text for holidays or call once every few weeks, but every conversation turned into a guilt trip. She'd talk about how empty the house was, or how I was ungrateful for the sacrifices she made. She never apologized for the trust fund. She never acknowledged that she had essentially stolen my peace of mind for years. Eventually, I went no contact after another fight and been living my life peacefully for almost 2 years. That last fight was the breaking point. It was over something small, but it unraveled into her screaming about how I owed her for my upbringing. I realized then that she didn't want a daughter. She wanted a subordinate. So, I blocked her. I blocked her friends. I changed my routine. And for 2 years, I actually started to heal. My anxiety became manageable. I wasn't waking up in a cold sweat wondering if I'd done something to upset her. That was until I got a text from her yesterday. My phone lit up with a number I hadn't seen in 24 months. I had unblocked her briefly a few months ago during a moment of weakness, thinking maybe time had changed her, and I forgot to reblock. She texted me asking to catch up and that she has something important to ask. The phrasing was so clinical, so manipulative. No, I miss you. No, how have you been? Just a demand for my time under the guise of an important question. I thought it was weird and didn't respond at first. I sat with the phone in my hand for an hour, feeling that old familiar knot forming in my stomach. My heart was racing, and I could feel the progress I'd made in therapy slipping through my fingers. I decided to ignore it, hoping she'd take the hint. She didn't. I later get another text stating that she has a contract for me to sign, and it's super important. A contract. My mind went to 1,000 different dark places. Was she suing me? Was there a legal issue with a trust one didn't know about? I get an email, read it, and it's a letter stating that she could have co-authorization to my trust till I turn 21. The audacity of it was breathtaking. She didn't want to catch up. She wanted a signature that would give her legal access to the remains of the money my grandmother left specifically for me. I was immediately upset and told her to screw off, and I wasn't signing anything. I didn't use polite language. I didn't offer a nuanced explanation. I sent a short, blunt message telling her to stay away from me and my finances.
She didn't stop there, though.
She began a barrage of messages. She told me it was important because they're struggling to pay for my dad's medical bills. He had knee surgery last year, got sepsis, and since hasn't been able to work. My dad and I were never as close as I would have liked, mostly because he was an enabler to her behavior, but I didn't want him to suffer. However, the story felt too convenient. Every time she needed something in the past, there was a crisis that only my money could solve. The way the trust was set up is so that it's only bare necessities. Only for me, no one else. My grandmother was very specific in the legal language. The funds were meant for my housing, my medical care, and my education. Even if I wanted to help them, the trust wouldn't allow it without a massive legal headache, and quite frankly, I don't want to. I'll admit, I hate my mom. She put me through so much I ended up getting diagnosed with PTSD, anxiety, and depression. That's how bad it was living with her. Every interaction with her is a trigger. When I see her name on my screen, I stop being a 20-year-old woman with a job and an apartment. I become that scared 16-year-old girl hiding in her room, wondering why she wasn't good enough to be fed or cared for. I haven't responded to her yet. I'm not sure if I should. Part of me wants to scream at her, to list every single time she went to TJ Maxx while I was starving. Another part of me wants to stay silent and just let the silence speak for itself. I can't trust her with my money. I don't put it past her to use the money for non-important things. If I gave her co-authorization, that money would be gone in a month. She'd find a way to justify it. She'd say the medical bills were paid, but then she'd magically have a new wardrobe and a remodeled kitchen. I still stand on my response. They're adults, not to mention there's a reason why I cut her off. She made her choices for 18 years. She chose her shopping sprees over my mental health. She chose her ego over our relationship. Now, she's facing the consequences of having no support system because she burned all her bridges. My family friend, she like an aunt to me, is worried though and thinks maybe she should reach out and check on them. This aunt knows a lot of the history, but she still believes in the "but she's your mother" philosophy. She's been calling me, telling me that I'll regret it if something happens to my dad, and I didn't help. I worry as well, mostly for my dad, but I still am not sending money, let alone give her access to my money. I know that if I give an inch, she will take a mile. If I send $500 for a medical bill, she'll be back next week asking for $1,000 for recovery costs. It feels like a trap. It feels like she's using my father's illness as a crowbar to pry her way back into my life and my bank account. I've worked too hard to build this life. I've spent too many hours in therapy and too many late nights at work to let her dismantle it all with one important contract. Am I the a-hole for telling her to screw off after she asked for money to my money? Update. First off, while my post blew up, which surprised me, I didn't expect that many people to read it, let alone respond the way they did. I went through a lot of the comments more than once because there were things people pointed out that I hadn't fully thought through. Some of it just confirmed what I already felt, but other parts made me slow down and actually look at the situation from a different angle instead of reacting purely based on how everything used to be. I'll answer some questions first before I give the new details. A lot of people asked about my dad. He's innocent in all of this. Turned out he had no idea she reached out. That part mattered more than I expected. I was prepared for the possibility that he knew and was okay with it, which would have made things a lot more complicated. Finding out he didn't even know took a lot of pressure off and made it easier to separate what he's dealing with from what my mom is doing. Tons of y'all asked about suing my mom for stealing my money. It's not possible. She used the money for my trust correctly. She'd show proof of needing something paid for, then turn around and make me pay her in cash. I was uneducated at the time, so I just gave it to her to avoid a fight. I also don't have proof of it. Looking back, I understand how that worked in her favor. Everything on paper looked clean, and everything off paper is just my word now. At the time, I didn't question it because I didn't really think I had a choice. She officially is on a watch list. She'd be unable to try to sign off or get in contact with the trust lawyers without my permission. I have also been stalking my credit, and though I haven't seen anything suspicious yet, I'll stay alert. Getting that set up gave me some peace of mind. It doesn't undo anything, but at least it closes the door on her trying something like that again, behind my back. Now, on to the update. I read through the document and realized if even I signed it wouldn't make a difference. The trust was written so it can only benefit me. Since I don't live at home, their medical bills don't affect me. It made the whole thing feel even more unnecessary. It wasn't just a bad idea. It wouldn't have worked the way she claimed anyway. That made it clearer that the request wasn't about actual solutions. My family friend, basically my aunt, did reach out to my mom, and it didn't go well. That conversation went downhill fast. It didn't stay focused on the original reason for reaching out. It turned into something else entirely, and from what I was told, it got loud and personal pretty quickly. It wasn't about asking for help anymore. It was about blaming people for not being around and trying to pull attention back to her. My mom blew up. She started to get upset, saying my dad was on his deathbed, and no one cared or bothered to check up on them. That's not true. My dad is not on his deathbed.
Sick, yes.
Dying, no. There's a difference between someone struggling with recovery and someone being at the point she described, and that exaggeration didn't sit right with me. It made everything she said feel less reliable. My mom was also super upset because they didn't visit during the holidays. My aunt and her family live multiple states away and have 2 children. They're no longer speaking to each other. That part didn't surprise me as much. It's not the first time she's cut someone off after an argument like that. It just adds another layer to everything going on around her right now. It also turns out my dad has lost his job. He's been fighting it since he was on medical leave and fired because of his surgery. That part hit harder than anything else I heard. Losing income on top of dealing with health issues is a lot for anyone to manage, especially when recovery isn't quick. I reached out to my dad, and he told me he was unaware my mom reached out, though they've been struggling to keep up with bills because they're having to pay for his medication. He was upset she reached out asking about my trust. He's always been a provider. He hates the idea of needing help. Talking to him felt completely different from everything else that had been happening. It was calm, direct, and there wasn't any pressure attached to it. We planned out a date for tomorrow night. My mom will be out of town at the casino because she's not financially smart, so dinner's gonna be on me. It seemed like the easiest way to actually sit down and talk without things getting interrupted or turned into something else. I also told him we could talk about helping out a bit, even though he hates the idea. That conversation hasn't happened yet, but at least it's something we both agreed to discuss face-to-face instead of over the phone. I planned to help out a little bit, but I refused to hand money over to them. I don't trust my mom to just use my dad's account or his cards. I have money saved up and he means the world to me. Having him not worry about his meds would put me to ease. The way I see it, there are ways to help that don't involve giving her access to anything or putting myself in the same position again. My mom would lose it finding out about our dinner date, but she can screw off. After everything that's happened, I'm not concerned about how she reacts to that. This isn't about going back to how things were or pretending nothing happened. It's about handling one situation at a time without letting it turn into something bigger than it needs to be. Turns out after I left home, my mom got worse. She started to drink more and started to like the casino. She did it very occasionally when I lived at home, but since she's child-free now, she's gone off the rails. Figured I should add this since I found all of this out after talking to my dad. Also, since she's going to the casino tomorrow. That explains some of the behavior, but it doesn't change anything on my end. Right now, the focus is on getting through this part without undoing the progress I've made over the last couple of years. I'm not cutting off contact with my dad, but I'm also not reopening the door for everything else that came with living there. Thanks for the advice from everyone. This will probably be the last update. Hope I don't have to post again, or at least anytime soon, lol. Feel free to ask questions or whatever below too if you want. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Daily Tales Update.